What's up, Rockstars? Today I'm telling you everything we know about the Elden Ring board game coming up later this month. There's actually kind of a lot to go over. Thank you to my channel sponsor Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. Alright, let's get right to it. I'll be putting up some images either of the board game or the video game to kind of accentuate my points as I talk through them, so that you have something to kind of reference as I talk about specific points. So the first thing is that this is going to be a campaign game, and that means you'll have stuff like leveling up and all that kind of long form growth, whether it's the map, whether it's your character or your equipment or the quests that you're going over, stuff like that. This is not a sit down and play in one session game. This is something you and your friends are going to be playing kind of more long form. Speaking of which, they've only mentioned co-op so far, so it will be co-op, multiple player co-op, but they haven't mentioned anything about PvP yet. But co-op for sure, definitely. You guys are going to be exploring the map and doing stuff like that. Now, we don't know how that involves then fighting, let's say, a boss. Do you all have to go to the same location? Do you just teleport there? How does that work? Probably because of fast travels and stuff, but I guess we will see. Now, this is going to include a lot from the game. It includes crafting, it includes exploration, it includes NPCs, bosses. There's a ton of stuff that they're going to have there. So if it's in Elden Ring, most likely you're going to see it in some form or other. Now, there is a little bit of difference there. For instance, the Stakes of Marika are in the game, the board game. However, they actually now just give you extra lives or attempts at the boss is kind of how they work. So it's kind of doing what it does in the video game in a way, and still kind of plays homage to that while working in a streamlined environment for the board game, so it's not too cumbersome of a rule set. I suspect we're going to see that in many other instances as well as we learn more about it. Now, the scope of this first release is a big deal. It is the Weeping Peninsula and Limgrave, kind of the first two areas you tend to encounter, especially Limgrave, which you don't have a choice, but often people go to the Weeping Peninsula as well, kind of right after. So it makes sense to start there. But note that that is kind of this first release, which means that what you see now is not everything they're going to be doing. This is going to be a monolithic game. This is going to be a huge game with multiple releases. The first one's just going into that. I'll talk about my opinion on that at the end of the video. Now, how are you going to be exploring that map? Well, it's important to note that the map actually won't be the video game map. In fact, it won't even quite look like that, though it does look quite similar, though it has to work with the game as well. So they're not beholden to keeping it exactly like that. Really, it's going to be hex tiles that you flip over as you explore. So it'll be random and different when you play it, and it will not match the video game, but still have the same things. I actually made a big list of the things and places and things you can do in those areas. I'm assuming towards the beginning of the game there's like meteors and stuff like that change things, but that's kind of the beginning, right? And they just try to get all of that, or at least what makes sense, into the board game. So you're going to have a lot of the similar things, but you'll still get that kind of sense of exploration on, oh, what's behind this corner? Oh, what's over here? One thing that doesn't do is it allows you to see something off in the distance and say, I want to go there, which the video game does very well of, and this one won't. It'll very much be kind of a more blind exploration, if that makes sense, at least to get your bearings, and then I'm sure you can decide where to go from there. Okay, now the combat is not luck-driven very much, though it is a little bit. It's card-driven, not dice, but the card deck that you use is based off of what you have. So your equipment, your weapons, your art of war that you've chosen, any consumables that you have or that you've crafted, anything like that goes into your deck, and those are your options to do. And they have stuff like how fast they are and how powerful they are, stuff like that. So you can kind of make decisions based off of that. So you kind of have choices to make. We will know more about the combat next time, though. That's actually the very next update from this one. So probably, I'm assuming, next week. So next week, I might have another update just on the combat for you guys. Now, all of that's great, but it's not mindless either, which I really appreciate. Elden Ring, the video game, does a very good job of leading you along just enough to where you can kind of do your own thing and figure out your own stuff, while at the same time never feeling quite lost. They actually took the Guidance of Grace fairly literally here. In the video game, you get that little stream of light, and this one you actually get a deck of cards that kind of reveals things you need to do to kind of keep going forward. And it might be very direct in its quest. It might give you several options to do, and you get to choose kind of how to do that. So there are multiple ways of doing things. I don't know if that means that it kind of does the video game. You can get ahead of, like, if you go down one quest, you might block off another one even, or it might bypass a need for a certain step. I don't know if it's that advanced. It sounds like it's pretty straightforward while still giving you a little bit of freedom, as opposed to something overly complex you have to like track heavily. So what's not been mentioned? Well, like I said, PvP hasn't been mentioned. I don't know if that's going to be a thing in here or not. I know it's big in the video game, though I typically don't partake in that. I don't even summon any people. If I'm going to beat a boss, it's going to be me, or in Elden Ring's case, also my summons, because I love summons. But seriously, like, I don't know. I hope that it's in there. I would personally like the PvP to be kind of a side thing. I think it'd be great to see, okay, here's my character and how I've kitted them out with my deck of cards. Let's see who's better, you or me. You know, we've been fighting over that. And, you know, Bob is going to go grab food. And so we have a little thing to do on the side. That's how I would view PvP, instead of a whole other, like, mode that's, like, you know, big and heavy. I think it'd just be kind of a side thing you can do, if at all. But right now, co-op only. They've also not mentioned any long-form NPCs. They've mentioned NPCs and talking to them, so you'll get quests and stuff like that, I imagine. But people like Ranni, for instance, that are like really big, but they show up literally the first side of grace you typically go to, just about. But then they are like towards the very end as well. They're very long-form NPCs. And if this is only 2 areas, I don't know how they're going to do those quest lines that are that long, and still have them be, you know, sufficiently, you know, ending in time for the game, and you're not just, it's not just open-ended. I don't know how they're going to handle that, or if they are, maybe there just won't be any long-form quests like that. Also, I mentioned it, I don't know if there's going to be ashes or summons. I assume there are going to be. If you didn't know, ashes are summons, but I'm assuming there's going to be summons, like, you know, pets and stuff like that. If nothing else, it's a good expansion to sell, so I would imagine you would. I mentioned it's limited just to those areas as well, so you won't have any, like, the crazy good ones. You're not going to get any, like, Necro Dog, you know, or anything like that, or Mimic Tears, or, you know, any weird stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. And then also, I did note one thing that I'm kind of disappointed in. Everything else sounds great so far. But the flat bases on the miniatures put them several years behind their competitors. Most of their competitors on Kickstarter are offering miniatures with sculpted bases. It helps you both incorporate them thematically, but also allows you to make much more dynamic miniatures pose-wise. These are all on very flat, plain bases, and it reminds me of stuff from 5 years ago at this point. So definitely kind of behind the times there, though I've heard the quality's still pretty good. Now, the other thing I'd like to say is I'm actually happy with the scope here, because it allows you to piecemeal out it. It's not trying to FOMO you into some crazy expensive thing. You can do it over time as needed. It allows you to try the game out cheaper than you would otherwise. And because let's say they come out with some more stuff, but you didn't like this one, you don't have to get the other one. Instead of getting it all and then finding out you don't like it, right? So you kind of get exactly what you need, and then you can base the next one off of how much you liked this one, which is a great thing to do. It increases delivery time. It reduces bloat. We all know how Dark Souls ended up. It was too much. And so I'm very glad that they're able to focus that scope down. Actually, I'm very big on a cheaper entry point, which this will have, because it's not trying to do everything. And then also just, of course, you know, less bloat, right? Less scope. Anytime there's less scope, the more refined, the better, and the more focused it is. So I'm actually happy about that. I'm glad that's the case. And then I can just get expansions, ideally, or other, you know, little core boxes over time is kind of how I would like to build out that collection. Kind of like I do Warhammer or anything like that. But let me know your thoughts on this. Does any of this sound good, bad to you? Would you have done things differently? Like I said, there are some things like, you know, you step out and you see stuff off the distance. You're like, oh, that looks so amazing. I want to go there to that castle. And I don't know if you're going to get that here or not, right? So there are some things you could always do differently. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Let me know below in the comments. And of course, let me know if you want to hear more about the combat once we know more about that. With that out of the way, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, guys.